Three strangers with clipboards tried to find me on my own land. At 5:12 that morning, my phone buzzed, and by the time I checked the camera, 3 men were already inside my gate, claiming my land didn't belong to me anymore. No badge, no warning, just a clipboard and confidence that didn't sit right. I didn't call anyone. I locked the gate behind them instead. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. Stick with me because what the sheriff read later changed everything. And if you want more stories like this, go ahead and hit subscribe. At 5:12 a.m., my phone vibrated 3 times on the nightstand. Not a call, not a text. Motion alert. East Gate. That gate sits at the far edge of my land, low ground near a dry creek bed, a place nobody passes unless they've got a reason. Delivery trucks don't come out that far. Neighbors don't wander. And anyone who knows this part of West Texas understands one simple rule. You don't show up uninvited before sunrise. I didn't sit up fast, didn't panic. Out here, you learn early. If something feels wrong, it probably is, and rushing just makes you sloppy. The house was still dark, no hint of daylight yet. But both of my dogs, old shepherds I'd retired from herding years ago, were already awake. They didn't bark. They never bark unless I tell them to. They just sat there, stiff, ears forward, watching the door like they could see through it. That told me enough. I picked up the phone and tapped the alert. Infrared footage flickered to life. Then it steadied. White van, Ford Transit, no plates. It was crawling up my private road with the headlights off, moving slow like it had all the time in the world. No county markings. No company logo worth a damn. Just a cheap decal slapped on the side that read, Community Compliance Patrol. That alone told me everything I needed to know. Not law enforcement. Not maintenance. Not welcome. I swung my legs out of bed and pulled on my boots, didn't bother lacing them. The floor was cold. The kind of cold that wakes you up faster than coffee ever could. 15 years I've lived out here alone, long enough to learn the difference between wind and something moving against it, long enough to understand that trouble doesn't usually announce itself. It just shows up quiet and expects you to fold. I don't fold. I stepped into the garage, grabbed my handheld radio, the remote for the front gate, and clipped my Glock to my belt. Didn't draw it. Marine Corps taught me that rule the hard way. If you pull a weapon, you better already know what comes next. Tonight wasn't that moment. Not yet. The ATV engine coughed once before turning over, then settled into a low growl. Gravel snapped under the tires as I headed out, cutting across the ridge toward the east side. By the time I crested the hill, my headlights kicked on automatically, spilling pale yellow light down into the yard. They didn't flinch. That was the first thing I noticed. 3 men had already stepped out of the van, 2 white, 1 Hispanic, all wearing mismatched tactical vests over khaki pants, the kind you order online when you want to look official but don't have anyone backing you up. One of them had sunglasses on, even though it was still pitch black. Another carried a clipboard like it meant something. The third guy? He was already snapping photos of my barn like he was pricing it for auction. That's when my jaw tightened. I rolled the ATV to a stop and killed the engine. Silence dropped hard. Just boots on gravel when I stepped off. "Morning," I said, voice steady, carrying across the yard. "Mind telling me what the hell you're doing on private land at 5:12 in the morning?" Clipboard stepped forward like he'd practiced it. "I'm Officer Nelson," he said, chin up, trying to look taller than he was. "Community Compliance Patrol. We're here to assess regulatory adherence." I let that sit in the air for a second. "Regulatory what?" I asked, one eyebrow lifting. "Son, the nearest HOA is 3 miles west. This land isn't incorporated. You don't have jurisdiction over a fence post out here." He didn't blink, just tapped his clipboard. "This fencing obstructs emergency visibility," he said, "and your livestock containment system fails to meet secondary safety standards." I glanced past him at my fence. Solid cedar posts, wire pulled tight, built by my father, reinforced by me. "My dogs have better safety standards than the three of you," I said, "and they don't need clipboards to figure it out." The guy with the sunglasses leaned toward his radio, whispering something under his breath. Static answered back. The third one kept taking pictures. That was enough. I reached into my vest and pulled out the gate remote, pressed the button. Out at the road, a quarter-mile away, the iron gate slammed shut with a heavy metallic clang that rolled across the land like thunder, echoed off the hills. Final. All three of them turned at the sound. Clipboard, Nelson, looked back at me, just a flicker of something crossing his face. Not fear. Not yet. Then Sunglasses said the dumbest thing he could have said. "You ready for this?" I almost laughed. "Born ready," I said. I raised the radio to my mouth. "Daniels, this is Turner," I said. "Got 3 unknown males, no plates, fake patrol markings. East gate's locked." Sheriff Mason Doyle's voice came through clear, calm. "Copy that. 20 minutes out. Sit tight." I lowered the radio. For the first time, the three of them looked at each other. Not confident anymore. Something tighter. Something unsure. Nelson cleared his throat. "We need to leave. This is a municipal vehicle." I gave a slow nod toward the van. "Nothing about that van says municipal," I said. "And nothing about you says authorized." I took a step closer, boots crunching on gravel. "And you still haven't answered my question." The air between us went cold. Because now it wasn't about rules. It wasn't about fences. It was about why 3 men in a fake truck thought they could roll onto my land before sunrise and act like they owned it. And standing there, watching them shift their weight, watching that confidence start to crack just a little, I realized something wasn't lining up. Not just trespassing. Not just intimidation. Something bigger. Which left me with one question I couldn't shake. Why did they think they could block my gate and get away with it? I didn't move. Didn't raise my voice. Out here, the man who talks the least usually knows the most. Nelson adjusted his grip on that clipboard like it was something official, like it gave him weight. "We're conducting a compliance inspection," he said again, slower this time, like repeating it might make it real. "This property falls under extended oversight jurisdiction." "Extended from where?" I asked. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he tapped the page. "Ridgecrest Holdings, HOA Authority Expansion, filed last quarter." I let out a quiet breath through my nose. "Filed where?" Another pause. Longer this time. Sunglasses shifted his stance. The guy with the camera stopped taking pictures. That told me more than anything they'd said so far. Because real authority doesn't hesitate. It doesn't improvise. "You boys got paperwork?" I asked. "Stamped? Recorded? County file number?" Nelson's jaw tightened. He flipped the clipboard around, showing me a stack of printed forms. Clean, neat, full of words that sounded official if you didn't read too close. I didn't even take it from him. Just leaned in enough to see. No seal. No clerk signature. No filing reference. Nothing that would hold up anywhere that mattered. "You printed that this morning?" I asked. His eyes flicked up to mine. "That's not relevant." "No," I said quietly. "It's exactly relevant." Behind him, the man with the camera raised it again, snapping shots of my fence line like he was documenting a crime scene. The shutter clicks echoed sharp in the still air. "You're obstructing emergency access routes," Nelson continued, pushing forward like he hadn't just slipped. "And your livestock containment doesn't meet secondary compliance under—" "Stop," I didn't say it loud. Didn't need to. He stopped. All three of them did. Because tone carries more weight than volume when you're standing on your own land. There's no emergency route here, I said. No county road, no easement, no public access. This is private land. Has been for 53 years. Nelson lifted his chin. Our records say otherwise. That's so? I nodded toward the ground beneath his boots. Then your records are standing in the wrong place. Silence stretched out between us. I could hear the faint hum of the ATV engine cooling behind me, the slow shift of cattle somewhere out past the ridge. Every small sound felt sharper. Sunglasses stepped forward a half step. Look, he said, voice lower now, less confident. We're just here to document conditions. You don't have to make this difficult. I turned my head slightly toward him. Difficult? I said. You drove onto my land before sunrise. No notice, no badge, no jurisdiction. And you're telling me I'm the one making it difficult? He didn't answer. Because there wasn't a good answer. Nelson cleared his throat again, trying to regain control. Failure to comply will result in fines, daily fines, and possible enforcement action. That made me almost smile. Fines, I repeated. You planning to send those where? To which address? He hesitated again. Strike two. I took one slow step forward, not aggressive, just enough to close the distance. Let me make something real clear, I said. You don't have a county file number. You don't have recorded authority. And you sure as hell don't have permission to be here. The man with the camera lowered it. Sunglasses looked back toward the van. Nelson held his ground, but I could see it now. That thin crack under the surface. The place where confidence starts to leak out. We have authorization, he insisted. From who? He opened his mouth, closed it, didn't answer. There it was. Not a mistake, not confusion. A test. They were probing, seeing how far they could push before someone pushed back. And that meant one thing. This wasn't their first stop. You boys been doing this long? I asked. No one spoke. I glanced at the van. Clean. Too clean. No dust buildup on the lower panels, which meant it hadn't been driving ranch roads long. Fresh decal. No wear on the edges. New operation. Or a rushed one. Let me guess, I went on. You roll up, talk compliance, throw around fines, see who folds. Nelson's eyes hardened. We enforce standards. You enforce nothing, I said. Not here. The words hung in the air. For a second, nobody moved. Then Sunglasses shifted again, glancing toward the road, toward the gate that was now locked tight behind them. And I saw it. That flicker. That moment where they realized something had changed. Because up until now, they thought they were in control. Now they were standing on land they didn't understand, with no way out except the one I controlled. Nelson followed his gaze, turning just enough to see the direction of the gate. Open it, he said. Not a request. I didn't move. Sheriff's on his way, I said. You can explain it to him. The man with the camera swore under his breath. Sunglasses stepped closer to Nelson, whispering something I couldn't quite catch. Nelson didn't respond. He just stared at me. You're making a mistake, he said finally. I met his eyes. No, I said. You made it when you crossed that fence line. Silence again. He shifted his weight, looked back at the van, then at the open stretch of land behind him. That's when I saw the decision forming. Not to argue, not to explain, but to move. Fast. And in that moment, I understood something that tightened everything inside my chest just a little further. They weren't here to talk. They were here to push. And if pushing didn't work, they were going to try something else. Something dumber. something that would cost them. I didn't say another word, just stood there and waited to see which mistake they'd make next. It didn't take long. Sunglasses moved first. He took 2 quick steps back, scanning the fence line like he was measuring distance, calculating options. The guy with the camera followed his eyes, lowering the lens, suddenly more interested in exits than angles. Nelson caught it too. "Stay put," he snapped under his breath. But the tone had changed. Less authority, more urgency. That was the shift. Up until now, they'd been playing a role, controlled, scripted, confident. Now they were reacting, and reacting means mistakes. Sunglasses turned and started walking toward the side fence. Not running, not yet. Just moving like he thought he could slip out before anyone noticed. I let him take 3 steps. Then I spoke. "You crossed that line," I said, voice flat. "You're adding trespass to whatever you're already explaining to the sheriff." He stopped, half-turned, looked at Nelson. Nelson didn't answer, didn't give an order, because he didn't have one. That hesitation spread through all 3 of them like a crack in glass. The man with the camera shifted his weight again, glancing back toward the van. That van was their anchor, their exit, their control point, and it was about to become their problem. I walked past them without another word, boots steady on gravel, heading straight for the UTV. Behind me, I heard Nelson raise his voice again, trying to pull things back. "This isn't necessary," he called out. "We can resolve this without escalation." I didn't answer, didn't even look back, because now I wasn't talking to them. I was acting. The UTV engine turned over on the first try. Low, heavy diesel rumble. The kind that doesn't sound fast, but pulls like it means it. I rolled it forward, slow at first, then angled it toward the van. That got their attention. "What are you doing?" Sunglasses snapped, stepping forward. Still no answer. I drove past them, circled once, lining up the front of the UTV with the van's rear axle. Gravel crunched under the tires as I adjusted position. Nelson's voice sharpened. "You can't interfere with municipal property." I cut the engine. Silence dropped again. Then I stepped down, reached into the back, and pulled out the steel tow cable. Thick, worn, reliable, the kind you don't question. That's when their voices started overlapping. "You don't have authority. This is illegal. You're escalating." I ignored all of it, walked to the van, dropped to a knee, wrapped the cable around the axle with slow, deliberate movements. No rush, no wasted motion. Sunglasses moved closer, hands half raised like he might try to stop me, but he didn't touch me, because something in the way I moved told him exactly how that would go. "You're detaining us," Nelson said, louder now. "That's unlawful." I tightened the hook into place and stood. "No," I said calmly. "I'm preserving evidence." That shut them up for a second, just long enough. I climbed back into the UTV, turned the key. The engine growled to life. Then I pressed the throttle. The cable snapped tight with a metallic crack. The van lurched, tires grinding against gravel as resistance gave way inch by inch. "Stop!" one of them yelled. Too late. I didn't jerk it, didn't rush it. Just steady pull, controlled, deliberate force. The van rolled, 10 feet, 20, gravel spraying, metal groaning, dust lifting into the air in a slow, rising cloud. The UTV dug in, engine low and steady, dragging the white Transit across my yard like it belonged there, like it always had. I angled toward the open barn, lined it up, then kept going. The van slid straight inside, tires bumping over the threshold before settling hard against the packed dirt floor. I killed the engine. Silence again. I stepped down, unhooked the cable, coiled it without looking at them. Then I walked to the barn doors, both hands on the steel handles, and pulled. The doors slammed shut with a deep, echoing boom that rolled through the structure. I dropped the crossbar into place. Metal on metal. Final. When I turned back around, all three of them were standing there, frozen. Sunglass's face had gone red. The cameraman looked like he wanted to disappear. Nelson, clipboard still in hand, was trying to hold on to something that wasn't there anymore. "You just committed a serious offense," he said, but his voice didn't carry the same weight. I stepped closer, stopping just inside his comfort zone. "Unless you can show me a badge," I said, "or a warrant, or anything that ties you to actual authority, you're just three men who drove onto private land without permission." I let that sink in, then added, quieter, "And now your vehicle's part of the investigation." Behind them I could hear movement. Cattle shifting somewhere beyond the ridge. A faint metallic creak from the fence line. Everything felt sharper, focused, controlled. The balance had shifted. They knew it. Nelson tried one more time. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." I looked at him. Really looked this time. "No," I said. "I understand exactly what I'm dealing with. A bluff, a test, and now, evidence." Somewhere in the distance, faint but growing louder, I heard it. The low, steady rumble of a truck coming up the road. Sheriff Mason Doyle. 20 minutes had passed, right on time. Sunglasses heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound. The cameraman took a step back. Nelson's grip on the clipboard tightened just a little more, because now the next move wasn't theirs, and whatever story they'd been planning to tell, they were about to have to prove it. I folded my arms and waited. Let the sound of that approaching engine carry across the land, and for the first time since they showed up, they looked like men who weren't sure how this was going to end. The sound of Sheriff Doyle's truck rolled closer, steady and familiar, cutting through whatever confidence they had left. That's when everything went wrong. Sunglasses broke first. He turned and bolted toward the side fence. Not walking this time. Running. "Hey!" Nelson snapped, but it was too late. The cameraman hesitated for half a second, then followed. Panic spreads fast when it starts. I moved without thinking, stepping forward. "Stop!" I called out. They didn't. Boots hit the ground hard as they sprinted across the yard. Gravel scattered under their feet. They weren't thinking about authority anymore. They were thinking about getting out before the sheriff saw them standing here with no proof, no plates, no story that would hold. The fence line was 50 yards out. They didn't make it clean. Sunglasses hit it first. Shoulder into cedar post, hands grabbing wire. The whole section gave with a crack that echoed across the pasture. Old wood doesn't forgive that kind of impact. The post snapped. The wire sagged. And then everything collapsed at once. The sound carried farther than it should have. Sharp, wrong. And then came something worse. A high, panicked cry. I froze for half a second. Not from fear, recognition. I knew that sound. I was already moving before I saw it. "Damn it!" I muttered, pushing past them. Beyond the broken fence in the low grass, one of my calves, Sarge, was tangled in the fallen wire. 8 weeks old. Too young to understand panic. Too strong to stop fighting it. The more he struggled, the tighter it wrapped. Barbed wire bit deep into the muscle above his leg. Blood darkened the hide, already spreading. He let out another cry. Short, sharp, pain. I felt something twist tight in my chest. Behind me, the three men had stopped running. They stood there, breathing hard, staring at what they'd just caused. "That's on you," Sunglasses said. Too quick, too defensive. I didn't answer. Didn't look at him. Because right then, anger wasn't useful. Control was. I stepped closer to Sarge. Slow, steady. "Easy," I said under my breath. The calf jerked again, trying to pull free. "Easy," I repeated. I crouched. hands moving carefully, finding the wire where it had looped tight around his leg. The barbs had caught deep. Cutting wouldn't be quick, but forcing it would be worse. Behind me, Nelson found his voice again. "This situation is escalating," he said. "You need to release us immediately so we can stop talking." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. He stopped. All of them did. Because now the stakes were clear. This wasn't about fences anymore. This was damage. Real damage. Legal damage. I pulled my pocket knife and started working the wire loose, slow, careful movements to avoid tearing more flesh. Blood slicked against my fingers, but I kept steady pressure, loosening tension one strand at a time. Sarge let out another cry. I kept my voice low. "You're fine," I said. "You're fine." The sound of the sheriff's truck grew louder behind us. Close now. Gravel crunching. Engine slowing. Timing. Always timing. The wire finally gave just enough. I eased it off. Sarge stumbled back, legs shaking, trying to put weight down and failing halfway. He didn't run. Just stood there, confused, hurt, breathing hard. I stood up, slowly, turned back toward the three men. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. Everything that mattered was already written on the ground behind me. Broken fence. Blood. Injured livestock. Trespass with damage. Nelson swallowed, eyes flicking between me and the calf. "That wasn't intentional," he said. "No," I replied, "but it happened. And that's what matters in court." The sheriff's truck rolled to a stop behind them. Engine cut. Door opened. Boots hit gravel. Sheriff Mason Doyle didn't rush. He never did. He stepped forward with the same measured pace he brought to everything, eyes scanning, taking it all in without wasting motion. Broken fence. Three men. Locked barn. Me. Then his gaze shifted past us, to the calf, and it stayed there a second longer than anything else. "What happened?" he asked. I wiped my hands once against my jeans. "Unauthorized entry," I said. "They tried to leave. Took the fence with them." Doyle nodded once. Didn't look at me again. He walked straight past the three men, stopping at the edge of the broken fence, eyes moving over the wire, the blood, the ground. Then he turned back, slow, deliberate. "Names," he said. Nelson stepped forward, trying to recover something. "Officer Nelson, Community Compliance Patrol. We were conducting—" "Names," Doyle repeated. Shorter this time. Harder. Nelson hesitated. That was all it took. The balance shifted again. Doyle's eyes narrowed just a fraction. "Let's try this again," he said. "Real names. And who authorized you to be on this land?" Silence. No clipboard tapping now. No rehearsed lines. Just three men standing on ground that didn't belong to them, with nothing left to stand on. I watched it happen. That moment where the story they walked in with stopped working. And for the first time since they arrived, they weren't the ones asking questions anymore. They were about to start answering them. Nelson shifted his weight, eyes flicking once toward the barn where his van now sat locked behind steel doors. "Names," he started. Doyle cut him off with a look. Not loud, not aggressive, just final. "Real name," Doyle said. "Driver's license. Now." The three of them exchanged glances again. Not confident ones this time. Calculating. Quiet panic settling in behind their eyes. Sunglasses spoke first. "We're contracted—" "License," Doyle repeated. Shorter. Colder. That did it. Nelson reached into his pocket. Slow, careful, like every movement mattered now. He handed over a wallet. Doyle took it without comment, flipped it open, scanned the ID, then he looked up. Daniel Price, Doyle read. Not Nelson. Silence. Doyle moved to the next one. Eric Salazar, he said after a glance. No badge, no department. Then the third. Mark Leland. He closed the last wallet and slipped them into his own jacket pocket. Step back, Doyle said. They did. No hesitation this time, because whatever script they'd come in with, it was gone. I stayed where I was, watching. Doyle walked past them again, slow, steady, taking in the ground one more time. His gaze lingered on the broken fence, then the blood on the wire, then the calf standing unevenly a few yards out. You call a vet? He asked me. On the way, I said. He nodded once, then turned back to the three men. You entered private land without permission, Doyle said. No recorded authority, no identification tied to any municipal or county agency. No one spoke. You caused property damage, he continued, nodding toward the fence, and injury to livestock. Sunglasses, Salazar shifted again. That wasn't intentional. Doesn't matter, Doyle said. Flat. Final. The air tightened again, different this time. Not tension. Wait. Then Doyle glanced toward the barn. What's in there? He asked. Their vehicle, I said. Didn't want it leaving before you saw it. Doyle held my eyes for a second, then nodded. Open it. I walked past him without a word, boots steady on gravel, the metal crossbar still warm from the morning air. I lifted it, slid it free, then pulled the barn doors open. The van sat exactly where I'd left it, dust still settling on the floor around it. Doyle stepped inside, slow, deliberate, ran a hand along the side panel, eyes scanning the decals, the lack of plates, the clean edges where nothing had been registered or inspected. He circled once, then stopped at the driver's door. Keys, he said. Price hesitated. Doyle didn't look back. Keys, he repeated. Price swallowed, reached into his pocket, and handed them over. Doyle unlocked the door, opened it, and leaned inside. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Because this was the part that mattered. Not what they said, what they carried, what they brought with them onto my land. Doyle came back out holding a folder, plain, unmarked. He flipped it open right there, scanning page after page. Then he paused, just for a second, enough for me to see it. That shift, the one that says something has changed. What is this? Doyle asked, holding up one of the pages. Price stepped forward. Compliance documentation. Doyle didn't even look at him. These aren't filed, he said. No county stamp, no clerk record, no permit number. He flipped another page. Maps don't match county survey grid either. That landed hard. I felt it. Because that wasn't just fake paperwork. That was something else. Something planned. Something deliberate. Doyle closed the folder slowly, turned back toward them. Who sent you? He asked. No one answered. Not right away. Then Salazar spoke, voice lower now. We were contracted through Ridgecrest Holdings. There it was. A name. Finally. Doyle nodded once. Contracted to do what? Inspection, Price said quickly. Property compliance verification. Doyle's expression didn't change. You don't verify compliance on land that's not under your authority, he said. You trespass. Silence again. Then Doyle stepped closer. Not aggressive, but close enough. You want to try again? He asked. Price shook his head slightly. That was it. That was the moment they stopped trying to control anything. Doyle turned toward me. "Anything else I should know?" he asked. I hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "There's more," I said. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the phone I'd taken from the van earlier. Burner, cheap, still off. "Found this inside," I said. "Didn't touch it." Doyle took it, turned it over once in his hand. "Good," he said. "Leave it that way." He slipped it into his evidence bag. Then he stepped back, looking at all three of them. "You're staying here," he said, "until we sort this out." Price opened his mouth, closed it, didn't argue, because now they understood. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't going away. This was turning into something official, something recorded, something they couldn't talk their way out of. Doyle keyed his radio, calling it in. Additional units, documentation, everything by the book. I stepped back, giving him space, letting the process take over. Because that's how you win this kind of fight. Not loud, not fast, precise, controlled, legal. The sun had started to rise by then, just enough light creeping over the ridge to turn the dust in the air gold. But it didn't feel warmer. If anything, it felt colder. Because whatever Ridgecrest Holdings thought they were doing out here, they'd just left fingerprints all over it. And I had a feeling this wasn't the end of it. Not even close. As Doyle finished his call, I looked out past the broken fence line, past the low ground where the gate stood locked shut. And the question came back again. Stronger this time. Not just why they came, but who thought they could send them, and what they were really trying to take. I didn't ask the question out loud. Didn't need to. Because the moment Doyle said Ridgecrest Holdings, something clicked into place. Not an answer, a direction. Doyle finished securing the scene. 2 deputies arrived within 10 minutes, cuffed the 3 men without resistance, read them their rights, and started documenting everything. Photos, measurements, statements, by the book. That's how this kind of fight gets won. Before they loaded them up, Price tried one last time. "You're making this bigger than it is," he said, looking at me like he still had something left to leverage. "This is a compliance misunderstanding." I met his eyes. "You brought fake authority onto private land," I said. "You broke a fence. You injured livestock." I let that hang, then added quieter, "That's not a misunderstanding. That's a record." He didn't answer. Didn't have one. The doors slammed shut behind them, and Doyle's truck pulled away with the 3 of them in the back. Just like that. The yard went quiet again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one had weight. I turned back toward the barn, then toward the fence line. The damage looked worse in daylight. Cedar posts split clean through, wire twisted and sagging. Blood dried darker now along the barbs. Sarge stood off to the side, leg trembling but holding. The vet truck pulled in 10 minutes later. Dr. Wallace didn't waste time with questions. He knelt, checked the leg, worked carefully, efficiently. His face told me everything before he spoke. "Ligament damage," he said. "Deep cut. He'll walk, but not the same." I nodded once. "How much?" "Close to 18 grand, he said. "Treatment, follow-up, long-term care." I didn't react. Didn't need to. Because that number wasn't just a bill. It was evidence. I signed the form, took the copy, folded it once, and slipped it into my jacket. Then I walked back to the house. No rush, no panic, just a shift. Inside, I cleared the kitchen table, laid everything out, camera logs from the gate, time-stamped, vehicle entry recorded at 5:12 a.m., still frames from the footage, van, faces, decals, the phone Doyle bagged. I had the call logs backed up from the moment I found it. Didn't open it. Didn't tamper. just recorded what it was doing. That matters, always. Then I added the vet invoice, fence damage photos, and one more thing, the land file. I pulled it from the cabinet. Thick folder, worn edges, decades of records, deed transfers, boundary surveys, county filings stamped and dated back further than any HOA in this county had ever existed. I flipped to the most recent certified survey. Clear lines, clear ownership, no overlap, no ambiguity. If someone was trying to redraw that map, they were doing it off the books. My phone buzzed. Doyle. You got a minute? He asked. Yeah. They're talking, he said. Not much, but enough. I leaned against the counter, eyes still on the survey. What kind of enough? Ridgecrest isn't the HOA, he said. They're a holding company, contracted by a developer. Name's not on anything official yet. Trying to stay clean, I said. Trying to stay invisible, Doyle corrected. That tracked. Paperwork in that van? I asked. Fake, he said. But not sloppy. Someone put time into it. I nodded slowly. Which means it's not just harassment. No, Doyle said. It's groundwork. There it was. Not pressure. Preparation. They testing boundaries? I asked. Looks like it, he said. Seeing who pushes back. I glanced down at the table, at the deed, the survey, the evidence starting to stack into something real. Well, I said, they picked the wrong place to test. Doyle let out a quiet breath. I'll keep digging on my end, he said. But if this goes where I think it's going, it's not staying local, I finished. Exactly. We hung up. I stood there for a moment, looking at everything laid out in front of me. Then I made another call. Luke Mercer. He picked up on the second ring. You're up early, he said. I've got a situation, I replied. He didn't ask what kind, just said, send me what you've got. I did. Photos, logs, names, the Ridgecrest mention. There was a pause on the line while he looked through it. Then he exhaled slowly. Yeah, he said. That's not random. What is it? I asked. Give me a few hours, he said. I want to confirm before I say it out loud. That told me everything I needed to know. When Luke pauses, it's because the answer's worse than the question. We hung up. I went back outside, started repairing the fence, not because it needed fixing right then, but because it reminded me of something simple. This land doesn't change hands because someone shows up with a clipboard. It changes hands on paper, filed, stamped, recorded. And whoever sent those 3 men out here, they weren't done, not even close. But now neither was I, because this wasn't just about stopping them at my gate. This was about finding out exactly what they thought they could take, and making sure they couldn't take it from anyone else either. Luke didn't call back. He showed up. Late afternoon, dust trailing behind his truck as it rolled up my drive like it had somewhere to be. Luke Mercer didn't waste time on phone calls when something mattered. He brought answers in person. He stepped out, eyes already scanning the land before he even shut the door. You weren't wrong, he said. That was his version of bad news. We didn't shake hands. Didn't need to. Inside, I said. We moved straight to the table. Everything I'd laid out was still there. Photos, logs, the vet invoice, the survey. Luke didn't sit. He stood over it, flipping through each piece with the kind of focus that meant he was already building a picture. Then he dropped his own file on top of mine. Thick, organized, prepared. That name you gave me, Ridgecrest Holdings, he said. It's a shell. I leaned back slightly. Meaning it doesn't do anything, he said. No actual operations, no physical office. It exists on paper to move money and hold contracts. That lined up. Who's behind it? I asked. Luke slid a document forward. Derek Holloway. The name landed heavier than I expected. I'd heard it before. Not local. Bigger than that. What's his angle? I asked. Luke didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his folder and pulled out a printed satellite map, laid it flat. Look here, he said, tapping a section. My land, outlined. Then he traced a line west, through open acreage, then further, until it connected to a cluster of planned development lots. Proposed expansion zone, he said. High-end residential, gated, views, water access. I followed the line again, straight through my property. Corridor, I said. Exactly. He nodded. You're not the target, Luke continued. You're the obstacle. That made everything sharper. The fake patrol, the pressure, the testing. They're trying to establish control, I said, even if it's fake. Long enough to make it real, Luke replied. That was the strategy. Not ownership, perception. You push hard enough, long enough, people start to assume you belong. And once that happens, paper catches up later. Luke reached back into his folder and pulled out something smaller, a digital recorder. He set it on the table between us. Got this from a contact, he said. Closed HOA board meeting, 3 nights ago. I didn't ask how. Didn't need to. He pressed play. Static for half a second. Then a voice. Smooth, controlled, confident. Derek Holloway. You don't enforce compliance, the voice said. You create leverage. Turner's land is the hinge. Once he folds, the rest aligns. A second voice asked something I couldn't make out. Then Holloway again. If he doesn't fold, we escalate. Pressure. Documentation. Make it look official. People respond to authority, even fake authority. I felt my jaw tighten. Luke didn't look up. He let it play. We don't need ownership yet, Holloway continued. We need presence. Once that's established, we can refile boundaries, update maps, shift perception. After that, it's just paperwork. The recording clicked off. Silence filled the room. Different kind this time. Clear. Focused. That's your answer, Luke said. Not trespass, not harassment. A system. Deliberate. Layered. I exhaled slowly. They were testing the first move, I said. Luke nodded. And you shut it down. Not enough, I said. Not yet, he agreed. Then he reached for another document. Bank records, highlighted lines. 86,000, he said. Transferred from a residential HOA account into Ridgecrest Holdings. Why would an HOA pay a shell company? I asked. Luke met my eyes. They don't, he said, unless they're part of it. That shifted things again. Bigger than one developer. Bigger than one play. This was networked, coordinated. How many properties? I asked. At least 3, Luke said. Yours is just the cleanest entry point. Because of the land, because of the location, because of that corridor. I looked back at the map, at the line cutting through everything I owned. They picked the wrong hinge, I said quietly. Luke gave a slight nod. I was hoping you'd say that. We stood there for a second. Then he leaned forward slightly. There's more, he said. Of course there was. They've already started altering digital boundary layers, he continued. GIS overlays. Nothing official yet, but close enough to confuse anyone who doesn't check the original filings. That explained the van, the clipboard, the confidence. They weren't just pretending. They were building a version of reality where they belonged. one file at a time, one visit at a time. I tapped the deed on the table. This still holds, I said. For now, Luke replied. But they're setting up a scenario where it gets challenged. How? Through volume, he said. Complaints, reports, inspections, legal pressure. They bury you in paper until you either give in or get worn down. That was the real play, not force, fatigue. I nodded slowly, then asked the only question that mattered now. How do we stop it? Luke didn't hesitate. We don't stop it, he said. I looked up. We expose it. That was different. Not defense, offense. He tapped the recorder. You've got conspiracy, he said. Intent, financial trail, fraudulent representation. That's not a local issue anymore. No, that was federal territory, or at least state-level attention. We go legal, I said. Full, he replied. I glanced back at the evidence on the table. The photos, the logs, the blood on the wire, the map. Everything aligned now. Not random, not isolated. A system trying to take hold. And me standing right in the way of it. I nodded once. Then we build the case, I said. Luke gave a small, tight smile. Already started. Outside, the sun was dropping lower, shadows stretching across the land. Quiet. Still. But not peaceful. Because now I knew what they were trying to take. And more importantly, I knew how they planned to do it. Which meant the next move wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine. And this time, we were going to put it on record. 2 days later, I stood outside Brewster County Courthouse with a folder in my hand that weighed more than it should have. Not because of paper, because of what it meant. Luke had already filed the initial complaint. Elena Cruz, sharp, precise, and not interested in losing, had taken the case before I even finished asking. By the time I got there, everything was moving. Fast. That's the thing about real evidence. It doesn't argue. It forces action. Inside, the air felt colder than it should have. Not temperature. Pressure. The kind that builds when people know something's about to break. Elena met me near the doors. You ready? She asked. I nodded once. Keep it simple, she said. You don't need to win the room. You just need the truth to land. That's all I ever planned to do. We stepped in. Derek Holloway was already there. Pressed suit. Clean lines. Same kind of confidence I'd heard in that recording. He didn't look like a mall worried about anything. Not yet. 3 rows behind him sat Price, Salazar, and Leland. Different clothes, same faces. No vests this time. No clipboards. Just men who didn't look nearly as sure as they had at 5:12 in the morning. The judge entered. Be seated. Everything tightened. Derek's attorney stood first. Smooth voice. Controlled pace. Your Honor, this is a case of unlawful detention and obstruction. My client's contracted personnel were prevented from performing compliance verification duties and... Elena didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. The judge did. Counsel, she said, adjusting her glasses slightly. Before we proceed, do you have a recorded jurisdictional agreement authorizing your client to operate on the defendant's property? The attorney smiled slightly. Of course, Your Honor. He handed over a document. Clean, printed, confident. The judge took it, read it, then read it again. Something shifted. Subtle. But there. She lowered the paper slightly. This signature, she said, tapping the page, belongs to County Inspector Harold Pruitt. Yes, Your Honor, the attorney replied. He retired 4 years ago. Silence. The kind that doesn't move, doesn't breathe. Derek's posture changed, just a fraction. The attorney opened his mouth, closed it. The judge set the document down. "This is not a valid authorization," she said. "It's not even a convincing one." That was the first crack. Elena stood. No rush, no theatrics, just control. "Your Honor," she said, "we'd like to submit evidence regarding the nature of this compliance operation." "Proceed." That's when things shifted. Not in tone, in direction. Elena didn't argue. She presented. "First, the footage. Drone footage from my property, time-stamped, showing the van entering with no plates, showing the men exiting, documenting, measuring, acting without permission. No commentary, just fact. Then, the fence. Photos, damage, measurements, veterinary report." She placed the invoice on the bench. $18,000, she said. "Direct result of unauthorized entry and negligent action." The judge didn't respond. Didn't need to. Then, the paperwork. Elena held up the same documents Doyle had found in the van. "No county stamps," she said. "No filed permits. No legal standing." She paused, then added, "But that's not the full picture." That's when Luke stepped forward. Calm, measured. He took the stand, swore in, then leaned slightly toward the microphone. "State your name," Elena said. "Luke Mercer." "And your role?" "Land survey and records analysis." She nodded. "What did you find?" Luke didn't look at Derek. Didn't need to. "Financial transfers," he said. $86,000 from an HOA account into Ridgecrest Holdings, a shell entity tied to Mr. Holloway. A murmur moved through the room. Small, contained, but there. "And beyond that?" Elena asked. Luke reached into his folder, pulled out the map, laid it flat. "Altered GIS overlays," he said. "Boundary lines digitally shifted to create the appearance of extended jurisdiction over private land, including Mr. Turner's property." The judge leaned forward slightly. "Are these official filings?" she asked. "No," Luke said. "They are not recorded, not recognized, but they are designed to appear legitimate to anyone who doesn't verify them through county records." That landed harder than anything else so far, because that's how this works. Not through truth, through assumption. Elena nodded once. "Final piece," she said. She held up the recorder, pressed play. Derek's voice filled the courtroom, clear, unmistakable. "You don't enforce compliance. You create leverage. Turner's land is the hinge." No one moved. No one spoke. Even Derek didn't. Because there's a difference between accusation and hearing your own voice say it. The recording clicked off. Silence again. But this time it wasn't neutral. It was heavy. Final. The judge looked down at her notes, then back up. Her gaze settled on Derek. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "do you wish to respond?" For the first time since I'd seen him. He didn't answer immediately. His attorney leaned in, whispering something. Derek nodded slightly. But the confidence, it was gone. "Your Honor," the attorney began, "this is being mischaracterized." "No," the judge said. Not loud, not angry, just absolute. "This is being clarified." That was the moment. The exact second everything turned. Not in a loud way, not dramatic, just a clean shift in weight. From defense to exposure. The judge set the recorder down, then folded her hands. "Based on the evidence presented," she said, "this court recognizes probable cause for fraudulent misrepresentation, unlawful entry, and organized attempt to manipulate property boundaries." The room didn't react. Didn't need to. Because everyone understood what that meant. This wasn't over. Not even close. But the direction had changed. Derek Holloway didn't look at me. Didn't need to. He already knew. Whatever control he thought he had, it was gone. And for the first time since this started, he wasn't the one moving the pieces anymore. Derek shifted in his seat, just enough to show it. Not panic, not yet, but something close to recalculating. That's what men like him do when control slips. They don't react. They adjust. His attorney leaned in again, whispering fast this time. Derek nodded, slower than before, trying to regain footing. But it was already too late. Elena didn't sit. She stayed standing, one hand resting lightly on the table, eyes steady on the judge. "Your Honor," she said, "we have one final submission." The judge gave a small nod. "Proceed." Elena turned, not toward Derek, not toward the jury, but toward the side of the room. "Sheriff Doyle." That name carried. Doyle stepped forward, boots quiet against the floor, the same way he moved on my land. Measured, controlled, never wasting motion. He took the stand, swore in, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder, different from the rest, older, heavier. He set it down carefully. "State your role," Elena said. "County Sheriff," Doyle replied. "And what do you have there?" "Certified property record," he said. "Filed, stamped, and recorded with Brewster County." He opened the folder, turned it so the judge could see. Even from where I stood, I recognized it. My deed. Original. Stamped. Recorded. Real. "This document," Doyle continued, "establishes ownership of the Turner property. Boundaries are clearly defined. No overlap. No shared jurisdiction." The judge leaned forward slightly. Doyle slid a second document beside it. "This," he said, "is the most recent certified survey. Matches the original deed. No modifications. No extensions. No recorded changes." The judge compared them, side by side. Then she looked up, directly at Derek. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "do you have any recorded document that supersedes this deed?" Derek didn't answer right away. His attorney started to speak. But Derek lifted a hand, stopped him. That was new. He leaned forward slightly, eyes on the documents. Then he shook his head. Once, small, but clear. "No," he said. That was it. That single word carried more weight than anything said so far, because it confirmed everything. No authority, no jurisdiction, no legal ground. The judge sat back. Silence filled the room again. But this time it wasn't uncertainty. It was resolution. She picked up Derek's submitted document, the fake authorization, held it between her fingers for a second, then set it aside. "This court recognizes the Turner deed as the controlling legal instrument," she said. "All claims of extended HOA jurisdiction over this property are unsupported." Her voice didn't rise, didn't need to, because every word landed exactly where it needed to. She turned a page in her notes. "Additionally," she continued, "the submission of falsified documentation, combined with coordinated entry onto private land under false authority, indicates deliberate misrepresentation." Derek's posture tightened. The attorney leaned closer again, urgent now. Too late. The judge closed her folder. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "you are no longer a party asserting authority in this matter." A pause. Then, "You are now subject to investigation." That was the shift. Final. Irreversible. The room didn't erupt, didn't react. It didn't need to, because everyone understood what just happened. Control didn't just slip. It transferred. Clean. Complete. Derek looked at me then, for the first time. Not with confidence, not with calculation. Just a long, steady look, like he was trying to measure something that had already changed. I didn't move, didn't react, because there was nothing left to prove. The judge turned to Elena. "Your motion for protective order is granted," she said. "Immediate enforcement. No further contact, direct or indirect." Elena nodded once, then sat. Just like that. Clean, precise, done. But the judge wasn't finished. She turned toward Doyle. "Sheriff," she said, "I want all materials related to Ridgecrest Holdings and associated entities reviewed. Full report submitted to the county prosecutor." Doyle gave a short nod. "It's already in motion," he said. Of course it was. The judge tapped her pen once against the desk. "Court will recess," she said. The gavel came down, sharp, final, and just like that. Everything Derek Holloway built around assumption, pressure, and control collapsed under a single document that had been there the whole time. The deed. I stepped back as people started to move. Quiet conversations, chairs shifting, energy releasing. Luke came up beside me. "That's how you end it," he said. I shook my head slightly. "No," I said. "That's how it starts." Because this wasn't just about my land anymore. Not after what we heard. Not after what we proved. Derek wasn't walking out of this clean. Not this time. And as I watched deputies step toward him, not aggressive, just procedural, I realized something simple. They came to my gate thinking authority was something you could fake long enough to make real. But authority isn't what you say. It's what's recorded, stamped, filed. And today, that record just buried them. By the time I stepped out of the courthouse, the sun hit harder than it had that morning. Not warmer, sharper, like everything had been stripped down to what mattered. Luke walked beside me for a few steps, hands in his jacket, eyes scanning the street like he always did. "They'll try to contain it," he said. "They won't," I replied. He glanced over. I nodded toward the courthouse doors behind us. "Too many records now," I said. "Too many eyes." He gave a slight smile. "Good." We didn't say much after that. Didn't need to. Because once something hits the legal record, real record, it doesn't stay quiet. It spreads. Fast. By the next morning, it had already started. I was back at the ranch when my phone lit up before sunrise. Not alerts this time. Calls, one after another. Unknown numbers, local numbers. Then Doyle. "They froze his accounts," he said without greeting. "Who?" "Ridgecrest," he replied. "And Trenton Holdings. Same network." I leaned against the fence post, looking out over the land. "That was quick." "Faster than expected," Doyle said. "County prosecutor got the file last night. Fraud, misrepresentation, conspiracy, enough to move." I nodded slowly. "What about Holloway?" "Held for questioning," Doyle said. "Not walking anywhere." That tracked. Men like Derek don't fall all at once. They come apart piece by piece. We hung up. I stepped out into the yard. Same ground, same fence, same land. But something had shifted. Not physically. Legally. Permanently. Sarge stood a few yards off. Weight still uneven, but better than yesterday. Healing doesn't happen fast out here. But it happens. I walked over, ran a hand along his neck. "You're still here," I said quietly. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. That was the point. Mid-morning, another call came in. "Luke." "It's spreading," he said. "How far?" "3 counties so far," he replied. "Same pattern, same shell structures, same fake compliance tactics." I exhaled slowly. "Anyone else pushing back?" "Not like you did," he said. Most people paid fines. Some signed agreements they didn't understand. That tightened something in my chest. That's how it works. You don't take land all at once. You take it one signature at a time. What happens to them? I asked. Luke paused. Depends, he said. But now there's a record. That changes everything. Yeah, it does. By afternoon, it hit the news. Local first, then regional, then bigger. Not dramatic headlines, just facts. Developer under investigation. Fraudulent land claims exposed. HOA enforcement questioned. Clean, simple, irreversible. By sunset, Doyle pulled into the drive again. Same truck, same steady pace. He stepped out, holding a thick envelope. Thought you'd want this in person, he said. I took it. Didn't open it right away. What is it? I asked. Court order, he said. Compensation, damages, immediate enforcement. I opened it. Check. $212,000. Itemized. Fence repair. Livestock injury. Legal damages. Penalties. All accounted for. I stared at it for a second longer than I expected to. Not because of the number, because of what it meant. Acknowledgement. Recorded. Final. Doyle tapped the brim of his hat slightly. Also, he said, protective orders active. Nobody tied to that operation steps foot on your land again. I folded the document once, slid it back into the envelope. They won't, I said. He gave a small nod. Didn't think they would. He looked out over the ranch for a second. Clean title, he added. No disputes. No filings pending. Always was, I said. He let out a short breath, then turned back to his truck. Take care of that fence, he said. I will. He drove off slow, same as always. I stood there for a while after, just listening. Wind moving through the posts, wood creaking, normal sounds, real ones. By evening, I had the new sign mounted at the gate. Steel, heavy, clear. Private land, no HOA, no exceptions. It caught the last light of the day and held it, like a marker. Not just for them, for anyone who thought authority could be faked long enough to take something that wasn't theirs. I walked back toward the house, boots steady on gravel. No rush, no pressure, just space. The kind you don't appreciate until someone tries to take it. On the porch, I set the envelope down beside my coffee. Didn't open it again. Didn't need to. Because the real outcome wasn't money. It wasn't even the court. It was this. Silence. Not the kind that comes before trouble. The kind that comes after it's been dealt with. I leaned back, watching the horizon settle into dark. And for the first time since 5:12 that morning, there was nothing left to prove. The land was still here, still mine. And this time, everyone else knew it too.
What this whole thing taught me is simple, and it's not something you learn from a courtroom. It's something you learn the hard way. If you don't know exactly what you own, and you don't keep record to prove it, someone else will eventually try to define it for you, not with thought, but with paperwork, pressure, and persistence. The only reason a helmet froze is because everything was documented, clear, recorded, and ready when it's made up. Out here, land isn't just dust and fences. It's history, it's responsibility, and sometimes it's quiet patience, waiting until the truth has enough weight to stand on its own. Now I'm curious about you. Have you ever dealt with someone who tried to push boundaries that weren't theirs? Maybe not land, maybe something else, but you know it wasn't right. If that's happened to you, go ahead and drop a 1 in the comments. If you've never been in that situation, broke at zero. I read more of this than you might think. If you are in a story like this, real situation, real pressure, and how people handle it without losing their footing, consider hitting subscribe. There's more coming, and I'll be glad to have you along for the next one.